Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really heavy but absolutely crucial data set. We're going to objectively unpack the 2025 to 2026 normalized tracker of deaths associated with U.S. immigration enforcement. We're sticking strictly to curated research data here to better understand the reality of institutional oversight. Specifically, we're focusing on the entities involved, the associated facilities, the custody conditions, and the documented causes of these fatalities.
Right off the bat, let's define exactly what this tracker actually measures. We are looking specifically at fatalities with a demonstrable, documented relationship to immigration enforcement. So we're talking about deaths occurring in physical custody, during high-speed vehicular pursuits, or during medical transfers. What we're not looking at are just general border region deaths where no operational agency involvement was officially recorded. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. Tracking enforcement-related deaths. 2. Agencies involved, namely ICE and CBP. 3. Geographic and facility clusters. 4. Custody and encounter conditions. And finally, number 5, documented causes of death. Let's jump in.
Section 1. Agencies ICE and CBP. Breaking down the lead agencies involved in fatalities.
The data starkly highlights exactly where the operational concentration lies. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, accounts for 62 of the documented fatalities in this research period, while the U.S. Border Patrol accounts for 38. We also see a tiny fraction here, with 3 fatalities tied to joint operations and just 1 to Homeland Security investigations. This gives us a solid baseline of exactly who is associated with these incidents.
Section 2. Geographic and facility clusters, mapping where the fatalities occurred. Notice the clear geographic clustering here. Texas has 25 documented fatalities linked to 28 listed facilities, alongside a massive average daily detaining population of over 18,000. California follows with 15 fatalities, and then Florida with 6. As the researchers point out, this correlates heavily with the sheer volume of detainees in those states. It's basically a combination of dense detention contexts and high border enforcement encounters.
When we zoom in from the state level down to specific locations, researchers flagged a few recurring facilities. We've got Camp East Montana, down in El Paso, the Federal Detention Center in Philadelphia, and Wynn Correctional Center in New Orleans. All of these appear multiple times in the dataset. There are also multiple incidents logged up in Minneapolis. Now, researchers mark these recurring spots as vital signals, basically flags that merit priority for further investigation.
Section 3. Custody and encounter conditions, understanding the environments of the fatalities.
A really crucial point here is distinguishing between the 2 primary environments where these tragic outcomes happen. On one side, we have in-custody conditions. These typically involve medical distress, individuals found unresponsive in their cells, or suspected suicides inside the actual detention centers. On the flip side, we have field or encounter conditions. These are vastly different. We're talking high-speed vehicular pursuits, extreme weather exposure, or use of force incidents out in the open.
Section 4. Documented causes of death, analyzing sterile facts directly from the tracker. To truly grasp this dataset, we need to look closely at specific documented rows from the tracker itself, analyzing the sterile facts without any editorializing. For example, take this record from October 4th, 2025, involving CBP in Texas. The documented cause of death is terminal illness, specifically adenocarcinoma. So this represents a fatality linked to severe medical distress involving a pre-existing condition rather than an active enforcement mechanism.
But in stark contrast, check out this entry from March 14th, 2025 over in California. This highlights deaths stemming directly from environmental factors during a field encounter. 3 individuals passed away here, and the cause of death is listed clearly in the tracker as exposure and hypothermia.
We also see fatalities resulting from active enforcement operations. Take this March 28, 2025 record from Texas, documenting a tragic vehicular collision. The cause of death for Elena Katerina Morales Chan and a second individual identified only by their initials is noted directly in the dataset as a fatal car accident due to CBP pursuit. Shifting back to those in-custody incidents, the data reveals a recurring pattern. This case from January 9, 2026, involves ICE in Pennsylvania. An individual named Perdy Law was simply discovered unresponsive in his cell at the Federal Detention Center in Philadelphia. This highly specific found unresponsive terminology actually appears multiple times across the facility logs in this archive.
The dataset also neutrally logs very specific operational outcomes. This entry from February 24, 2026, details a CBP incident in New York. It records that Nurul Amin Shah Alam, a blind refugee from Myanmar, faced sub-freezing exposure. The tracker literally states CBP abandoned him 5 miles from his home in those conditions, and tragically, he was found dead 5 days later.
Tracking back to that flagged facility list we looked at earlier, we see data points like this one from April 11, 2026. Down at the Wynn Correctional Center in Louisiana, Alejandro Cabrera Clemente was found unresponsive. Despite life-saving efforts initiated by the staff, an on-site physician pronounced him deceased.
Section 5. Contextualizing the data, understanding the researcher's methodological warnings. Having explored the micro-level data, it is absolutely crucial we zoom back out. To read this data responsibly, we have to keep a few methodological guidelines in mind. First, the date of encounter is distinct from the date of death. Second, agency involvement doesn't always equal physical custody. Remember, a highway pursuit is fundamentally different from a holding cell. And finally, official agency terminology often differs from the analytical outcome categories used by the researchers.
This quote perfectly summarizes the crux of their methodology. They state, "A defensible facility-level comparison requires denominator data. This report treats recurrence as a research priority signal rather than a risk estimate." To put that into perspective, without knowing the full capacity, the average daily population, and admissions data for every single facility, we just can't definitively declare comparative mortality rates. We have to treat these clusters exactly as intended, as vital signals pointing us toward areas that demand future research.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer. I want to leave you with this provocative thought. As this living register continues to grow, how will these research priority signals reshape enforcement accountability? As this data is rigorously tracked and normalized, what impact will these stark, undeniable numbers actually have on the future of institutional oversight? Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this critical information today.